My name is Amanda. I'm 35 years old, a pediatric nurse working 12-hour shifts, and mom to the sweetest 10-year-old twins Jack and Emma. After my divorce 2 years ago, we moved in with my parents. At the time, it felt like a blessing. I needed help, and they offered. But what started as a temporary lifeline slowly turned into a nightmare, one I never imagined my own parents would create. When my ex-husband, David, and I split after 12 years of marriage, I was left devastated emotionally and financially. We'd built our life around his income as a software engineer while I worked part-time to raise our twins. After the divorce, I had shared custody, minimal alimony, and no choice but to work full-time to support my family. My parents, Martha and Richard, said, "Just stay with us until you get back on your feet." I was grateful, even though our relationship had always been complicated. Growing up, I'd been the responsible one, the rule follower, while my younger brother Stephen was the golden child. My steady path through nursing school was overshadowed by Stephen's erratic success. A failed college stint, a tech business bankrolled by my parents, and now a six-figure salary at 32. Still, Jack and Emma were thriving. Jack, my sensitive little artist, always drawing or building something. Emma, bold and athletic, with a heart that demanded fairness. We made the best of our stay, me in the guest room, the twins in a converted office. I contributed to groceries, did most of the cooking, and made sure the kids respected their grandparents' space. I worked extra shifts and saved every penny, promising the twins, just a few more months and we'll have our own place by Christmas. Then Stephen and his wife Melissa had baby Ethan, and everything changed. At first, I told myself it was just excitement over their first grandson. But the favoritism was impossible to ignore. My parents turned their dining room into a nursery for Ethan, despite Stephen and Melissa living in a 4-bedroom house across town. They bought top-of-the-line baby gear, canceled plans with my kids to help Stephen instead, and brushed off any concern I raised. "Your brother needs more support right now. He's new to parenting," my mother said, as if I hadn't been raising twins largely on my own for 2 years. The subtle slights piled up. More expensive gifts for Ethan at Christmas. Comments about how he looked just like Stephen, while Jack and Emma were dismissed as looking like their father. When Jack proudly brought home an art project chosen for a district exhibition, my mother waved him away. "Not now, Jack. I'm helping Melissa pick curtains." I watched his face fall. Something in me hardened. By late summer, I'd nearly saved enough for a 2-bedroom apartment. 3 more months, I kept telling myself. Just 3 more months of biting my tongue. But then Stephen called a family meeting. Sitting at the kitchen table, cradling Ethan, he announced, "We're renovating our house, big project, 6 to 8 weeks. We'll need a place to stay." Before I could speak, my father beamed, "You'll stay here, of course." I tried to protest. We were already cramped, but my mother shot me a look. "Family helps family, Amanda. It's only temporary." And just like that, my kids and I were pushed further to the margins of our own living space. Stephen and Melissa moved in that weekend. My father helped set up a crib for Ethan, though he'd never offered to assemble beds for my twins. My mother cleared an entire closet for Melissa's clothes, while my things had stayed in suitcases for months. Suddenly, Jack and Emma were told to keep their voices down all day because Ethan might be napping. Their toys were boxed up as clutter. Their 1 hour of after-school TV vanished. Melissa controlled the remote now. One evening, I found Emma on the back porch, teary-eyed. "Grandma said I was too loud jumping rope," she sniffled. But Ethan wasn't even sleeping. Aunt Melissa just didn't want to hear me count. Jack tried to show off his art again, only to be ignored. When I spoke to my parents about how hurtful this was, they dismissed me. "Kids need to learn, babies come first," my father said. "You've always been jealous of your brother," my mother added sharply. The double standard became unbearable. When Jack asked politely at dinner if there was anything besides the meal full of Stephen's favorites, my mother scolded him for being ungrateful. Later, Ethan threw his plate on the floor and everyone laughed. "He's just exploring," Melissa said soon after. I found Jack and Emma's artwork had been stripped from the fridge, replaced with Ethan's daycare schedule and photos. Melissa brushed me off. I didn't think anyone would mind. My kids retreated to their shared bedroom. I started taking them to the library after school just to give them space where they weren't constantly silenced. A coworker finally said what I hadn't wanted to admit. "It sounds like your parents treat Stephen's family as honored guests and you as an inconvenience. That's not healthy for you or your kids." She was right. That night, I called a realtor friend. "I need to move out fast," I told her. By mid-October, Stephen and Melissa's 6-week stay had become indefinite. My parents spent $400 on a high chair for Ethan while complaining about the cost of Jack's asthma medication. When Emma practiced her clarinet for less than 15 minutes, Melissa stormed in. "Can you not? Ethan's napping, and I have an important call." Her little hobby can wait. Emma's little hobby was her passion, and I realized, with a sick feeling, that my kids were being made to feel small in their own home, and that was the moment I knew. I had to get them out. No more waiting. No more biting my tongue. Breaking free. A mother's choice. I'm Amanda, 35 years old, and mother to 10-year-old twins, Jack and Emma. After my divorce 2 years ago, I moved back into my parents' home. It seemed like a blessing at first. Free childcare while I worked long shifts as a pediatric nurse. But when my brother Stephen and his wife Melissa moved in with their baby, Ethan, everything changed. Suddenly, my children and I weren't just guests, we were intruders. Emma loved her music and her band. Teacher said she had real talent. Jack was my social butterfly, always full of energy. But under this roof, anything they did was dismissed as unimportant. When I noticed Jack becoming quiet and anxious, I reached out to his teacher. She confirmed my fears. His grades were slipping. He later admitted he was losing sleep, afraid of upsetting Grandma and Grandpa. "They're mad at us for everything," he whispered, "but never at Ethan or Uncle Stephen or Aunt Melissa." I started working extra shifts, not only to save for our escape but also to avoid the tension at home. My parents interpreted it as shirking responsibility, while Stephen and Melissa seemed pleased to have me out of the way. The breaking point came at a family dinner in late October. My mother went on and on about how gifted Ethan was. At just 9 months, he's already trying to stand. Stephen was an early walker too. Some children just have natural athletic ability. Then she turned to Jack with a sweet but cutting smile. "It's too bad you didn't inherit that from your father's side. David was always athletic, wasn't he?" I saw Jack's face crumble before he carefully hid it. The message was clear. Ethan's talents came from superior genes. While any good in my children existed despite me, my Aunt Susan caught my eye across the table. After dinner, she pulled me aside. "How long has it been like this?" she asked gently. "It's always been this way to some degree," I admitted, "but it's gotten worse since Stephen's family moved in." "This isn't healthy for your kids," she said, echoing what my friend Nancy at work had told me. "They deserve better." Her words gave me the courage I needed. For weeks, I'd been secretly meeting with a realtor friend. I found a small 3-bedroom house in the same school district. The rent stretched my budget, but I was approved because of my steady job and excellent credit. I'd already signed the lease, arranged utilities, and ordered essential furniture. Move-in date November 1st. I hadn't told a soul, not even Jack and Emma, but events forced my hand sooner than expected. The day everything changed. Following Tuesday, during a hectic 12-hour hospital shift, I checked my phone and saw frantic messages from my kids. Mom, something weird is happening. Grandpa and Uncle Steven are moving our stuff. Grandma says we have to move to the basement. This isn't fair. Mom, please come home. They took all our things downstairs. I hate it here. The basement is cold and gross and there are spiders. My heart dropped. I begged my supervisor to let me leave early, then sped home, every minute feeling like an hour. Inside, Jack and Emma sat huddled on the couch, eyes red from crying. My mother and Melissa were in the kitchen drinking tea like nothing happened. They moved all our stuff to the basement, Emma sobbed. They said we don't deserve the good rooms upstairs. I hugged them tightly, anger simmering beneath my calm voice. Let me handle this. In the kitchen, I demanded an explanation. Melissa spoke first. We needed space for Ethan's nursery and my home office. The basement works fine for your kids. The basement has mold, I said sharply. It's freezing, the ceiling is unfinished, and Jack has asthma. How could you move them without even asking me? They're older. They can adapt, my mother said coldly. Our other grandson deserves the best rooms. He's here all day while your kids are at school. The casual cruelty took my breath away. When my father and Stephen arrived, they echoed the same dismissive tone. Kids are resilient, Stephen shrugged. They should be grateful to have a place to stay at all, my father added. That was it. Something inside me shifted. I finally saw them clearly. People who valued my children less simply because they weren't Stephen's. I walked back to Jack and Emma, knelt down, and smiled. Pack your bags, I told them softly. Standing up at last, my father followed me into the living room, sputtering. Stop being so dramatic. No one's asking you to leave. No, Dad, I replied calmly. You just made it clear where we stand. And we deserve better. As the twins hurried upstairs to pack their most precious things, my family gathered. Like an angry jury. This is ridiculous, my mother snapped. You can't just leave because things didn't go your way. This isn't about me, I said evenly. This is about respect for my children, Stephen smirked. Where exactly do you think you're going to go? It's not like you've been saving much. That's where you're wrong, I replied. I've been saving since the day I moved in. I've signed a lease on a house. We moved November 1st. The silence was delicious. My mother's voice trembled. You plan to leave without telling us? I plan to tell you next week. I clarified, but you forced my hand today. Jack and Emma came downstairs, each with a backpack. Emma clutched her clarinet case. Jack held his sketchbooks and the stuffed dragon he'd slept with since he was 3. We're ready. Mom, Emma said firmly, if you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back, my father barked. I looked at him sadly. Stopped expecting that a long time ago. I loaded the car while my family watched in disbelief. My mother ran after me. Amanda, please, you're overreacting. Where will you go? Somewhere my children are valued, I said simply, and drove away. Freedom Nancy, my coworker, welcomed us warmly that night, giving up her guest room and even buying ice cream. I'm proud of you, she whispered. It takes courage to set boundaries with family. I lay awake between my sleeping children, feeling anger, sadness, and uncertainty. But underneath it all, peace. For the first time in years I had stood up for us. The next morning, I called in a personal day and returned to my parents' house to collect the rest of our belongings. I brought Jack and Emma with me. I wanted them to see that we were leaving together on our terms. My father opened the door with a scowl. Come to apologize? No, I said evenly. We're here to get our things. Inside, my mother sat red-eyed from crying. Stephen and Melissa were conveniently absent. We gave you everything, my mother insisted, and I've been grateful, I replied. But gratitude doesn't mean my kids should be treated as less valuable than Ethan. When she accused me of twisting her words, I quoted her back verbatim. Our other grandson deserves the best rooms. She had no answer. Upstairs, the twins packed only what mattered: books, instruments, favorite clothes. I told them, we can replace the rest. As we walked out with the first load, I looked back at my parents' house. It no longer felt like home, just a place where my children had learned a hard truth too soon. But we were free now. And freedom, even with all its uncertainty, felt better than any roof offered with conditions. Where exactly are you going? He demanded. This mysterious house you claim to have rented. We are staying with a friend until our house is ready next week. I explained, though I did not owe him this information. And how exactly do you plan to afford rent on your nurse's salary? He asked skeptically. The condescension in his tone made something snap inside me. I put down the bags I was carrying and faced him directly. Dad, I make $65,000 a year as a pediatric nurse. I have excellent credit, minimal debt, and I have been saving systematically for nearly 2 years. I am fully capable of providing for my family without your help. He looked genuinely surprised. It occurred to me that he had no idea what I earned or how I managed my finances. He had simply assumed I was struggling financially because that fit his narrative about me. The rental market is extremely tight right now, my mother interjected. How did you even find a place? I have been looking for months, I said. I have friends and connections. Just because I did not tell you about my plans does not mean I did not have them. We made several trips to load everything into my car. My parents watched silently, the reality of our departure finally sinking in. When we had packed everything we wanted to take, I did one final walkthrough to make sure we had not forgotten anything important. In the kitchen, I found my mother making coffee, her movements mechanical. We are heading out now, I told her. She turned to me, eyes welling with tears. I do not understand why you are doing this. We are family. Yes, we are, I agreed, and that is why this hurts so much. Family should make each other feel valued and respected. Jack and Emma have not felt that here for a long time. That is not true, she protested weakly. Mom, yesterday you told them they did not deserve the same quality of accommodations as their cousin. How do you think that made them feel? She looked away. We did not mean it like that. How else could you have meant it? She had no answer. As we prepared to leave, my father made one last attempt. This is a mistake, Amanda. You are letting your pride get in the way of what is best for your children. No, Dad. For the first time in a long time, I am putting what is best for my children ahead of everything else, including your approval. Jack and Emma said stilted goodbyes to their grandparents. I could see they were conflicted, having been taught to respect and love these people who had hurt them so casually. As we drove away, Emma asked, "Will we ever see Grandma and Grandpa again?" Yes, I assured her, but things will be different. We will visit on our terms when we are protested. Love is not just a feeling, Mom. It is how you treat people. It is the choices you make that show what you truly value. They stayed for nearly an hour, cycling through guilt trips, appeals to family unity, and finally grudging acknowledgement that perhaps they had been insensitive. We did not realize how it looked from your perspective, my father conceded. We just thought we were helping Stephen and Melissa through a difficult time. And I understand that, I said. But you helped them at the expense of my children's well-being and safety. That is something I cannot overlook. When they left, we had reached a tentative understanding they would respect our new living situation, and we would visit for Sunday dinner in 2 weeks. It was a small step, but it was something. Over the next several weeks, news of our departure spread through the extended family. Most were supportive, having witnessed the favoritism firsthand at various family gatherings. Aunt Susan, in particular, became a regular visitor, bringing homemade cookies and genuine interest in the twins' lives. At work, I received an unexpected opportunity, a promotion to charge nurse on the pediatric floor with a significant salary increase. The hours would be more regular with fewer overnight shifts, giving me more time with Jack and Emma. Meanwhile, I heard through the family grapevine that Stephen and Melissa were having difficulties. Without me there to help with household chores and childcare, in a pinch, they were finding it challenging to manage their own responsibilities. My mother, now in her 60s, was tired from trying to keep up with an active baby while also maintaining the house without my assistance. When we did attend that Sunday dinner 2 weeks later, the atmosphere was strained but civil. Stephen and Melissa were notably less smug, perhaps finally realizing that my presence had actually made their lives easier in ways they had taken for granted. Most importantly, Jack and Emma were happier than I had seen them in years. Jack's teacher reported that his focus and participation had improved dramatically, and Emma was thriving in her clarinet lessons, practicing daily in her own room without fear of being shushed or criticized. One evening, as I talked Emma into bed, she said something that confirmed I had made the right decision. "I like our house, Mom," she said sleepily. "I feel like I can breathe here." Out of all the validation I could have received, my daughter's simple statement meant the most. We had created a home where my children could breathe freely, both literally and figuratively, and that was worth everything we had gone through to get here. 6 months after our abrupt departure from my parents' home, our lives had transformed in ways I could scarcely have imagined. Our small rental house had become a true home filled with laughter, artwork on the refrigerator, and the comfortable chaos of family life. Jack and Emma had blossomed, their confidence returning as they settled into an environment where they were valued and respected. My promotion to charge nurse had come with not only a better schedule and increased salary, but also new responsibilities that challenged and fulfilled me professionally. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was thriving rather than just surviving. Our relationship with my parents had evolved into something cautiously cordial. The Sunday dinners had become a monthly tradition with clear boundaries established and mostly respected. My mother had slowly begun to acknowledge the favoritism that had pervaded our family dynamics, though my father still struggled to see his role in what had happened. "I have been thinking a lot about last fall," my mother said during one of her visits to our home. She had started coming by occasionally on her own without my father. "I did not realize how much we were hurting Jack and Emma." "What made you see it?" I asked, genuinely curious about her evolution. She sighed, looking older than her years. "After you left, nothing was the same. Stephen and Melissa stayed for another month, but without you there, I was overwhelmed trying to maintain the house and help with Ethan. I started to realize how much you had been doing, how much I had taken you for granted. It was the closest thing to an apology I had received, and I accepted it as such." And then she continued, "Stephen and Melissa started arguing all the time about childcare, about the renovation that never seemed to end, about money. They moved back to their house before Christmas, even though the work was not finished. I was not surprised. Stephen and Melissa had always presented a united front in public, but I had glimpsed cracks in their relationship. Without the buffer of my parents' constant approval and my practical support, those cracks had apparently widened. "How are they doing now?" I asked, more out of politeness than genuine concern. "They are in cruise counseling," my mother admitted. "Your father thinks it is nonsense, but I think it might help them. Melissa went back to work full-time, and they are struggling with the childcare arrangements." I nodded, feeling a twinge of sympathy despite everything. Parenting was challenging under the best circumstances, and their relationship had never seemed built on the strongest foundation. The most significant change, however, was in my children. Jack's anxiety had all but disappeared and his natural creativity had re-emerged. He had joined an after-school art program and was thriving under the mentorship of a patient teacher who recognized his talent. Emma had made the advanced band at school and was talking about trying out for the soccer team in the spring. One evening, as we sat together working on a puzzle, Jack had selected a quiet family ritual we had established in our new home. Emma broached the subject of her grandparents. "Mom, why do you think Grandma and Grandpa treated us differently than Ethan?" she asked carefully, fitting a piece into place. I considered my response carefully. I think people sometimes have fixed ideas about others that make it hard for them to see clearly. Grandma and Grandpa always saw Uncle Stephen as special and deserving of extra attention. When he had Ethan, they transferred those feelings to him. "But we are their grandchildren too," Jack pointed out. "Yes, you are," I agreed, "and they do love you. They just did not know how to show it equally or fairly." "Is that why we left?" Emma asked. "Because they were not fair." "We left because everyone deserves to be treated with respect and kindness," I explained. When that was not happening, we needed to create our own space where we could all thrive. Jack nodded thoughtfully. "I like it better here anyway." At Grandma and Grandpa's house, I always felt like I was in the way. "You are never in the way here," I assured him. "This is your home and you belong here exactly as you are." The conversation shifted to other topics, but I was struck by how maturely they were processing what had happened. Children were remarkably resilient when given safety, consistency, and honest communication. In April, an unexpected opportunity arose. A small 3-bedroom house in our neighborhood went up for sale, priced just within my reach, thanks to my promotion and careful saving. After consulting with a mortgage broker and reviewing my finances, I made an offer. To my surprise and delight, it was accepted. Becoming a homeowner had been a distant dream when we left my parents' house, something I hoped for in the nebulous future. Now, less than a year later, it was becoming reality. The house needed some cosmetic updates, but was structurally sound and in a great location. Most importantly, it would be ours. When I shared the news with the twins, their excitement was contagious. They immediately began planning how they would decorate their rooms, what color we should paint the front door, where we would plant a garden in the small backyard. "Can we get a dog once we move in?" Jack asked hopefully. "We will see," I replied, not ready to commit, but warming to the idea. A dog would complete our little family in many ways. The process of buying the house brought my father back into our lives in an unexpected way. Despite our still strained relationship, he had experience with home buying and offered to look over the inspection report with me. "The roof has at least 5 years left," he said as we sat at my kitchen table reviewing the documents. "But you will want to budget for replacing the water heater sooner rather than later." His practical advice was helpful, and I appreciated that he was making an effort to support me without controlling or criticizing my decisions. It was a small but significant shift in our dynamic. "I am proud of you, Amanda," he said unexpectedly. As he was leaving, "Buying a house on your own is no small accomplishment." The words I had longed to hear for most of my life caught me off guard. "Thank you, Dad," I managed to reply. "I know I have not always been fair," he continued haltingly. "Your mother and I have been talking a lot about how we handled things. I cannot change the past, but I would like to do better going forward." It was not a full apology, but coming from my proud, stubborn father, it was monumental. "I would like that too," I told him. Honestly, the day we closed on the house, Jack and Emma were in school. I signed the papers alone, but took a photo of the keys to show them when they got home. As I stood in the empty living room of our new house, my house, I felt a surge of emotion so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. 2 years ago, I had been a newly divorced mother, uncertain about my future and dependent on my parents' conditional support. Now I was a homeowner advancing in my career and, most importantly, providing my children with the stable, loving home they deserved. The journey had been painful at times, forcing me to confront hard truths about my family and